Tax authorities are beginning to focus their attention on barter income and are asking for 1099s from barter exchanges. Tax Law Channel host Rob Wood addresses this in a recent article in Forbes. Rob is back, and he, of course, is a partner at Wood & Porter in San Francisco. Welcome back, Rob, and happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday to you, Scott. It's good to be here.
I'm guessing most barter exchanges are considered informal agreements by most people who don't even think about any tax treatment at all, and that most people aren't even worried about that. I guess that's something you'd probably agree with.
It is, and I think I wrote this article in Forbes about bartering with tongue-in-cheek, I guess, because certainly most people don't, as you say, don't think about tax consequences, and frankly, even if they did think about them, most people, I believe, are assuming that they're off the radar and kind of off the grid and unlikely to ever have to pay any tax on these things.
But you raise a good point with the Internet. The IRS may be turning its attention a little more closely to it because that is a great platform to barter with, and it brings in some other things that no one would consider.
That's right, and I think that, traditionally, we all know, and I refer to this in the article, we all know the bartering has been around for centuries, if not thousands of years. In fact, the IRS has a barter site or a barter page on its IRS website, irs.gov, which is sort of interesting to look at. They even have a little video with an IRS official and kind of a stiff interview talking about bartering. And they're certainly thinking about it, but as you say, Scott, with the Internet, it's really taken it to a whole new level, and it's not merely you and I as friends and colleagues saying, gee, I'll do this for you if you'll give me that, sort of one-on-one, but it's rather with sort of intermediaries, putting people together that are across the country and across the world, and that's really an issue of much higher profile.
Now, how does the IRS specifically define bartering in their view?
Well, it's really anything. It's either goods or services. It's a non-cash transaction, so that I give you an item that I have, something that I've produced with services, or something that I bought, or something that I found. It really could be anything. Could be a collector's baseball, could be a painting, could be an item of machinery, and then you in turn give me something back or perform a service. And the IRS view is those are really two separate transactions, and each of us must look at our own tax consequences, and that most likely is income, or if it's an asset that we're transferring, gain, which might be capital gain if we're lucky.
And in most cases, without a 1099 or your own conscience, the IRS probably isn't going to find out about it.
Yeah, that's right, and it really is. Again, I think this sort of thing has always happened to some extent. The one-on-one transactions are unlikely to generate 1099s and unlikely to generate a lot of concern. But I think it's important for people to start thinking about it, and in extreme cases, I think they should think about it. As you say, their conscience may kick in, but if it's a great amount of work, let's say it's a lawyer who's going to defend someone in a criminal trial, and the lawyer's normal fee for that kind of a trial is $50,000 or let's say $100,000 for a felony trial, and the client says, well, I'm going to give you this instead. If the lawyer thinks that this instead is non-taxable, it may be a rude awakening to find that it isn't.
And you also bring up another good example where somebody is, for example, doing landscaping work in exchange for dental work, which is a medical expense, and it's kind of hard to deduct that at the end of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think if you start talking about services,
right.
I also postulated an example where someone is providing something to employees, and you have withholding considerations. Your head can really spin. It gets very complicated, and the IRS, for its part, tries to suggest guidance like, well, if you're giving your employees, if it's something beyond the holiday turkey or something of minimal value, usually $100 is what's defined as minimal. If it's World Series tickets, for example, you're giving to an employee or a client or something, maybe you have, well, in the case of an employee, you may have withholding obligations. You can't withhold on the ticket, so you have to withhold the cash value against cash compensation you're paying. So the rules can get complex, and frankly, you can have some ill will on the part of workers as well.
A story recently, speaking of World Series tickets, had a woman arrested for offering sex in exchange for World Series tickets. Now, had she not been arrested and received the World Series tickets in exchange for the sex, that would have been income.
Gosh, I'm almost afraid to touch that story. That's a good one. But yes, absolutely, that would be income. I guess it would be illegal income, but it would be income.
Yeah, had it gone through, you wouldn't probably want to put that on your return for many reasons. But technically, if you were going to be completely honest, you would have to count that as income.
Yes, you would. And of course, there have been some notable people, Al Capone probably being the most famous, who had allegedly committed all sorts of crimes, but ultimately it was only tax violations that ended up in his conviction.
Well, that's why they pay you guys the big money.
That's what they say.
Rob Wood is the host of the Tax Law Channel here on the Legal Broadcast Network. He is a partner at Wood & Porter in San Francisco. The text of this article can be found at woodporter.com, at Forbes.com, and of course along with this podcast here on the Legal Broadcast Network. Thanks, Rob, for talking with us today.
Thanks, Scott.
I'm Scott Drake, and thank you for watching the Legal Broadcast Network.